All right, let's get right into it tonight. Thank you for being with us. I'm Dan Haggerty. It is a Monday. We are starting things off here on The Story. Thank you for, being a part of this show, as you are every single night. All the ways to reach out and talk to us remain the same. They're at the bottom of your screen. You can hit us up on email at thestory@kgw.com or look for us on Twitter. Use that hashtag, HeyDan. Let's get started. And we are going to do so with the big story. Now, we're just a few days away from the Labor Day weekend, which has historically been a really dangerous time of year for us here when you consider wildfires. Case in point, the devastating fires that spread across Oregon last Labor Day. You can't forget that. They burned 1 million acres. They destroyed hundreds of homes, killed 11 people. Experts say there are reasons why fire season flares up around this time and that we should be vigilant in the coming weeks. Our producer, Ashley Koch, talked to a fire and drought researcher at Oregon State University.
The evening of Labor Day 2020 was haunting. The sky got dark and the wind started blowing. Power was knocked out to tens of thousands of people. Dust and ash from nearby fires blew into the Willamette Valley. After that, we didn't see the sky for a week. Fires destroyed entire towns, taking the lives of 11 people and the homes and livelihoods of hundreds of others. Let's flash back again to 4 years ago. The Saturday before Labor Day, a teenager playing with fireworks set the Columbia River Gorge ablaze. That fire spread 20 miles overnight, burned 50,000 acres, and decimated a huge part of the gorge. Now, it's been a summer of record heat waves, one right after another. The drought, it stretches across the state. Nearly every single acre in Oregon is at severe drought or higher. Not the best news when you're heading out for one last camping trip.
So there's lots more potential for human ignition sources as we get late into the season. We're not going to be done for a while yet.
Experts say late in the summer, around Labor Day, is a critical time for fire danger in the Northwest. There are a few reasons for that. First, firefighters are worn down by the long summer of fighting fires.
Our fire suppression resources are exhausted and they're spread very thin. They've been traveling all summer and we've got lots of really high priority fires that are happening all over the West.
Already this year, more than 1 million acres of land has burned between Oregon and Washington. Second, the land is dry.
Really, really dry.
The latest drought status update from NOAA says that 94.2% of the Pacific Northwest is in drought, nearly 60% at extreme drought. And there's something else to watch out for this time of year.
The west side, it's all dependent on easterly winds. So on the west side, whether we get a big fire like last year will depend if we get extremely unusual easterly winds. And I should mention easterly winds were associated with the Eagle Creek fire, in the gorge as well.
The east winds, the strong wind blowing from east to west, fueled the spread of both last year's fires and the Eagle Creek fire. They're also behind some of the largest and most destructive fires in Pacific Northwest history. The Yakult burn, that was a week after Labor Day in 1902. It burned 238,000 acres. And 2 weeks before Labor Day in 1933, the Tillamook burn destroyed 240,000 acres. Late summer is prime time for the east winds in the Pacific Northwest, and they can drive fires to spread for miles very quickly.
I think what we end up with that longer fire season, more people recreating, and this burden of active fires right now, that intersection is much more likely to occur in terms of when the east winds do come because of those lingering wildfires that are out on the landscape to then be swept in as that long-lasting ignition source. So we've got this sort of perfect storm. When the east winds do come, there are existing ignitions ready to go and ready to blow.
Ashley Koch, KGW News.
Thanks to our producer, Ashley, for that story. You got Joe Ranieri joining us now, meteorologist Joe Ranieri. So let's talk about the conditions. First of all, people get a little anxious considering what happened this time last year. So let's talk a little bit about that anomaly of that wind event and then the conditions now.
Yeah, going back to what we saw almost a year ago, we had three things. We saw very dry conditions. We're seeing very dry conditions right now. And we saw that east wind. It wasn't just an east wind with gusts up to 20 miles per hour. Some places near Detroit Lake saw gusts up to 60, 70 miles per hour at times. And some of those smaller fires, Dan, had been smoldering for weeks. And you kick in a little bit of some wind and it just spread at like very quickly like we saw. Let's go to the map. We'll show you what we're going to be seeing over the next couple of days with the futurecast. This is just showing you where the winds will be. And it's going to be relatively light the rest of tonight. But you notice the gusts pick up along the Oregon coast anywhere from 20, maybe 30 miles per hour over the next 24 hours or so. The good thing is this is more of a westerly flow. We're not going to be dealing with that easterly wind over the next couple of days. That's good because we're going to be seeing more of a northwesterly flow, bringing in more of a marine layer. So things should be relatively cool. Now, you might remember about that time that those wildfires started to spark last Labor Day weekend. We saw record heat, temperatures in the upper 80s to low 90s. We're not going to be that warm over the next couple of days, nor are we going to be that warm heading into Labor Day weekend. As we look at the futurecast for late tonight and into tomorrow, we'll have more of that onshore flow, bringing us more kind of a thick marine layer, similar to what we saw earlier today. And you notice by tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be seeing clear skies and relatively cooler conditions because of those clouds. Now, we'll also be seeing a little bit of measurable amount of rain, mainly along the northern part of the Oregon coast. But by the end of tomorrow, we're bone dry. We're seeing maybe 1/100th of an inch of rain. Now, I want to show you what we're going to be seeing over the next couple of days. Relatively cool, of course, day and into tomorrow. But you'll notice the winds over the next several days heading into the first part of the holiday weekend. It's more of a westerly flow, northwesterly flow. We're not going to be seeing an easterly wind. And because of that, we're going to be relatively on the cooler side, more mild side over the next couple of days. So we're not going to be seeing record-breaking heat heading into next weekend, nor are we going to be seeing those intense winds that we saw, during Labor Day weekend of 2020 that we just saw spread fires all over the place throughout much of the Pacific Northwest.
Got it, Joe. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Now, I do want to keep talking about the weather here, but I want to pivot to something a little different from wildfires. Now, I'm sure you've been watching the news just like I have and seeing all the damage from Hurricane Ida in the Gulf Coast. It hit Louisiana yesterday. Let's look at that wind. Category 4 storm when it hit, knocking out power to millions of people, causing widespread flooding. Ida just so happened to make landfall on the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. So we dug into the KGW vault and we found a report from Pat Doris in New Orleans in the aftermath of Katrina.
At a makeshift camp set up in a convent northeast of the French Quarter, Oregon National Guard soldiers greet homeowners who've had enough and want out. This man says he owns several properties in the area and did not have any trouble at his house, but he knows it's time to leave.
The only time we get in trouble is when we come out here. As long as we're there, we okay. But I mean, they want everybody to evacuate, so we decided to do it before dark? No, before they made us evacuate.
Sheila Williams is another resident who's had enough. The 38-year-old mother of 3 wants to be evacuated. Her food and water are running low.
I thought we was going to have water. We didn't have no water, no lights, no electricity, no nothing.
She says her husband and 2 daughters are safe, but before being evacuated, she asked the Oregon soldiers to help find her missing 14-year-old son. Sergeant Anna Nam from Portland agrees.
We're going to go try to track him down and take them to the shelter where they're all holding the civilian that they've evacuated.
Sheila directs the military police crew to a public housing project a mile away. We're going with them. We drive down streets lined with homes and businesses nearly all destroyed by the floodwaters and looting that followed. We turn down a flooded street and slowly ease through the brown and green sewage-filled water. The smell is awful. At the project, Sheila and Major Arnold Strong from Salem start looking for the missing son. Sheila thought he was in a room at the top of these stairs. No one answers the door. They leave a note. It's eerie being in a place like this that held probably hundreds of people. Totally deserted and quiet now, although some may still be here and hiding out. The other thing is the green slime that's starting to be seen on the sidewalks and grass. It covers everything now as the floodwaters recede. But Major Strong is most worried right now about residents here who may be trapped and in trouble. A dog barks inside this home next door, and on the door is written the words, "Help me."
Is anybody in here?
Local soldiers later tell us this is one of the most dangerous projects in all of New Orleans, that there are people here, but they only come out at night now, and they are armed.
Is there anybody here? Contact!
The soldiers drive Sheila back to the convent and put her on a bus with 2 other evacuees. They can't seem to make the bus stop beeping, but at least it's air-conditioned and will take her to an evacuation center. Oregon State student Juliet Turner feels good about this effort.
It's important. It's what needs to be done in this country, and it's, it's different from like Iraq and Afghanistan because we're helping out fellow Americans, and it's great to see them, appreciating our help, and taking care of them, providing water and everything they need and bring them back together with their family.
16 years ago probably feels like yesterday to a lot of those folks. You got to keep all those people in the Gulf in our hearts and minds, absolutely. Let's count some vaccines back here at home in Oregon and Washington. Right now, if we are counting, more than 2.6 million people have at least one dose here in Oregon. That's nearly 64% of the state's entire population. So that's everybody, even kids under 12 who can't get the vaccine yet. In Washington, more than 5.15 million people have gotten at least their first dose. That works out to be almost 68% of that state's entire population, including kids. Now, a lot of those unvaccinated kids under 12 are starting school in Oregon this week, and most of them are going to be going back to old school stuff, right? Old school school, full in-person learning. That has some people worried, including immunocompromised teachers who spoke with Christine Pitawanich.
My name's Jenny Richard, and I'm a science teacher in the Gresham-Barlow School District.
My name is Doug Robertson, and I'm a 5th grade teacher at Gresham-Barlow School District.
Normally, these teachers would be excited about the start of the school year, but with the continued pandemic and contagious Delta variant, they're worried.
As I sit and look out at my classroom that it's going to be full of students, I don't personally feel like this can be safe. And
we asked her to turn the camera around.
This is my classroom set up for 30 students. And generally, I have more than 30 students in each class period. So 7 periods worth of students, that's, close to maybe 245 students coming through my classroom.
And in Robertson's classroom, similar concerns.
Nearly impossible for students to maintain 3 feet of distance.
My desks are smushed probably even closer.
That's the voice of another high school teacher, too nervous to appear on camera. The teachers we spoke with are immunocompromised and told by their doctors not to teach in person.
I have a doctor's letter. In her opinion, I should be offered an option to teach virtually for this year.
And are you able to teach virtually for this year?
It's not an option that's available in our school district.
Richard says that's the issue. Teachers in her district are stuck between having to teach in person or taking leave that could be unpaid, while teachers in some other districts have an option to teach online.
What if I infect one of my kids because I had to teach? It's not fair.
Aside from being worried about his students in the classroom, elementary teacher Doug Robertson also has a 2-year-old daughter who's immunocompromised with a heart condition.
Basically, if she gets it, it's going to go real bad. I can't express how scared and stressed and angry I am that I even have to be worried that I'm going to make my daughter sick because I was not given an option to do my job safely.
Their hope that by the time school starts next week, parents and teachers will get more communication from the district and more options for families. We reached out to the Gresham-Barlow School District. A spokesperson says staff had an opportunity to talk to HR about individualized accommodations. They said the district also has safety strategies, including masking and vaccine requirements for staff. In addition, 3 feet of distancing will be maintained to the extent possible, which aligns with state guidelines. They say students who are interested can attend a district-sponsored online charter school. Christine Pitawanich, KGW News.
Now, it seems a little counterintuitive, despite the pandemic crashing the economy, but Oregon taxpayers are expected to get a big kicker refund next year. And some of that has to do with the rich getting richer. And speaking of the pandemic, let's say you're a chef who lost your job when all the restaurants shut down. What do? Well, this guy decided to start cooking meals for families in need.
Just take the burden off for one night so they can just breathe easier for one night.
When the story continues. Welcome back. I always go through your questions and comments during the break. And I always want to tell people it doesn't have to be a comment about tonight's show. It doesn't always have to be a reaction. If you just have a question or something that's been kind of burning in your mind a little bit that you are too busy to try and figure out yourself, send it our way. We got a whole team of people working for you trying to do that. So email us at thestory@kgw.com or use the hashtag HeyDan on Twitter. Who likes money? I'm a fan. I am. I'm guessing most of you probably are too. Well, if you're an Oregon taxpayer, you're likely going to get a big kicker refund next year when you do your taxes. The state is expecting to pay out nearly $2 billion, which could be the largest kicker refund ever in the state's history. How much you get back is based on your income level, so the median taxpayer in Oregon will get about $420 back. Now, I can hear some of you right now going, wait, what? In this economy? How does that work exactly? Well, let me explain. Oregon's kicker law says if the state collects 2% more in taxes than it expects during its 2-year budget cycle, then taxpayers get that extra money back. In 2020, when the state was making its revenue forecast for the next 2 years, things didn't look so great, if you remember. The pandemic was crashing the economy. People were getting laid off left and right, so the state was expecting less income to come in, less income tax revenue, and more people unemployed. But then the federal government added extra unemployment benefits that people had to pay taxes on. That, combined with other federal aid, helped the economy bounce back a lot faster than people expected. But the big reason for the big kicker, according to the Oregonian at least, is that high earners made a lot more money than expected during the pandemic. So yes, the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. But under Oregon's kicker system, that translates to a bit more money for everybody. Now, there are some people who don't love how this system works. David, for instance, emailed me and said this. Personally, I think the kicker law is insane. It seems to deny that we have both periods of economic growth and periods of economic decline. I think a saner approach would be to save when we're in a boom economy and spend when we're in a bust. I think we need to act against our own bad habits by setting up boundaries around a rainy day fund ahead of time as best we can. And David, obviously you're not alone in this viewpoint. We get emails like this almost every time we talk about the kicker. Even before the pandemic hit, lawmakers talked about diverting the kicker money to places that could really use it, like schools, for instance, or PERS fund. Governor Brown floated that idea in 2019. Some leaders have also suggested they could go toward more of a rainy day fund, like David's email there. And, another, who knows, possible global pandemic, economic catastrophe, something like that. But those proposals have never gone anywhere. So for now, we're all going to get just a little bit of money back in our tax returns. Now, speaking of money, I want to remind everybody about our Hey Help campaign. This week, we're asking you to consider donating to Milk Crate Kitchen. They provide families in need with free meals. Now, if you want to help them out, open up the camera on your phone, point it at the QR code on your screen. It'll give you a link to a donation page. You can also go to kgw.com/heyhelp. Milk Crate Milk Crate Kitchen was started by a Portland chef who lost his job during the pandemic. And we want to take a trip into their kitchen with our photojournalist, Stephen Redlin.
Chef Michael Casper is passionate about food, cooking, and community. He became a chef as a second profession later in his life. When the pandemic hit his adopted city of Portland, he had to adjust.
In the beginning, I just needed something to do to process what was happening in COVID.
Michael's job had ended.
Restaurants were closed, all of my friends, everybody was out of work.
His grandmother had a saying that he uses now: if you don't know what to do, do what you know. That motivated him to start feeding people who needed it for free.
And I was sitting on a milk crate, which I believe is one of the most versatile kitchen equipment.
Now, Milk Crate Kitchen is his nonprofit that has fed over 30 families every week for a year and a half.
So today we're gonna be making a chicken and vegan enchilada.
This is 7:30 in the morning. At the beginning, he cooked all the giveaway meals at his home. Now he works out of a Northeast shared kitchen that he pays for himself. There's veggies to cut, onions to chop, and chicken to cook. Oh, did I mention? He's got his full-time job to go to in just 3 hours.
Having a full belly or sitting around a table and spending it with your family and eating something maybe for the first time in a week, or just take the burden off for one night so they can just breathe easier for one night. Is that over?
Sherry Lynn Gardner volunteers to help cook, create connections, and collect food supplies for the nonprofit.
I love food.
On Instagram, she saw what Michael was doing.
And I see it and I go, it's just one person, it looks like, feeding families for like almost a year now by himself.
She's also held fundraisers for Milk Crate Kitchens so that Michael can keep feeding families.
Shred, right?
Now, 10:30 at night, same day, Michael's back after being at his other job all day. He's getting ready to deliver food and get it out in the morning. Everything's got to be put in place. We'll see how he's doing.
Right.
A handful.
Yeah, a small handful.
It takes 4 more hours to get all the meals assembled and pre-cooked. It's all safely stored and transferred, so it's ready to go to the families who've asked for them. It's 8 a.m. in the morning and Michael is already set to go. Michael lives in Gresham and he's taken home 6 of the deliveries to make out in his part of town. His first stop is a new home he hasn't delivered to before.
And that's it.
He rings the bell, but doesn't want to interrupt or disturb them. He also follows up with a text message to make sure the family knows the food is there. Michelle is a solo parent.
But right now, we're really needing the services. I was laid off, and I'm a single parent, so...
She's getting herself and her son ready for kindergarten after a year of being quarantined.
Yeah, he clearly cares about what he's doing and who he's helping.
Several more stops take up the rest of the morning.
I would love for there to be a week where there's 0, which means, and plenty of exposure, which means that nobody needed food. You know, that would be a blessing for everybody.
The highest number of families who got food in 1 week was 54. Over the last 18 months, he's arranged for 1,600 meals to get to homes, feeding around 6,500 people. Then just minutes later, Michael's back here getting his volunteers all organized.
He's just such an inspiration, and I hope that this motivates other people to do more for more than just yourself, right?
I absolutely needed to be involved. I just want this whole project to expand. I want it to grow.
With the help of people in the community, money donations, and volunteers helping with deliveries,
I'm going to do it for as long as I can, you know. But ultimately, I'd like for this to keep going. I would love to see this be something that creates longevity over years.
With Milk Crate Kitchen's Michael Casper, I'm Stephen Redlin, KGW News.
And here's that QR code again. You can go ahead and open up the camera on your phone. It'll take you to a link. It's a micro donation drive. You don't have to give a bunch of money. No matter what amount you can give, it all adds up and helps. Also, if you have any ideas for a local organization that you think is doing great work, please let us know, and we'll champion it too right here on our Hey Help campaign. All right, send us in some questions and comments to the story at kgw.com. I'll read a few when we finish the story next. Here's a comment from Deanna. As we were doing our fire coverage today, she hit me up on Facebook and said, "Hey Dan, went camping this last weekend and watched as campers leave yesterday who didn't put out their fire. So I did. When I went to the office and let them know what was going on, I was told most campers leave their fires going. I think this is unacceptable during fire season. How about you?" Yeah, I do, right? But you know that. And I would also say, you know, I can't speak for most or everybody. I don't work at one of these campsites, but I know a lot of people who camp, especially in this part of the country. They know what they're doing, and I think they put out their fires even when it's not fire season, because it's kind of the responsible thing to do. It's what you're supposed to do when you start a fire. But you know what? We can't reach everybody. We try our best to educate people as to what's going on, how dry it is, how windy it can get, how dangerous fire season can get, and it sounds like you are one of the ones we reached. So that makes me happy. If you see the campers next time who aren't doing it, try and teach them the right way and be nice about it. But you did the right thing and you put the fire out. But it's something we should always be thinking about. Try to help others learn, but in the meantime, you're doing the right thing. So that's something. I'll take it. That's the story for a Monday. Thank you so much for being with us. Keep letting us know what's on your mind. I'll see you back here tomorrow.